Hello and welcome back to the Pro AV Technology podcast. My name is Marius and I will be going through part one of a four-part series that I created based around the basic principles of a PA system. So let's go into part one. So part one you can find on my blog, which you can find at proavindustrytech77.blogspot.com. Part one is centered around a little bit of the history of a PA system, where it originated from, and the basic components that was developed throughout the years to get to the basic PA systems that we know obviously and use today. I also go through signal flow, and the way I learned signal flow when I first started obviously in the AV industry is with three very simple steps. And as you can see it here, I've actually got it laid out, an actual basic description and a diagram to illustrate and obviously explain how this all works. So first and foremost, you start off with what we call a source, which is in essence a microphone or a laptop or any sort of device that plays back pre-recorded music. The sources will then get plugged into what we call a modifier, and in this case it is a mixer, which then modifies the actual sound signal and obviously in a preamp state before it goes to an amplifier to obviously get boosted up, which then in turn connects to the destination, which is the speakers. The destination then obviously will relay that audio to the final destination, which is our ears. So this basic diagram here just explains what I mean with regards to source, modifier and destination. The four parts that I've created are based around different topics. So in this part one, I go through a full range point source PA system and a two-way PA system. In part two, I go through a three-way PA system, and I do a brief sort of comparison between a two-way and a three-way PA system. Part three, I go through distributed PA systems, or in this case, a 100-watt line PA systems, and how that works with regards to having multiple speakers on like at least one amplifier. And then the final part, part four, I go in depth into, but still in basic explanation and basic format, through line array PA systems. So with that, let's get going with full range point source PA systems. This is the most basic form of PA system, and it's commonly comprises of a microphone, a mixer, an amplifier, and two full range speakers or two active speakers, which all then interconnect to form a system. So I just wanted to quickly just focus on three diagrams that I did here, just explaining the different variants that's available on the market for basic PA systems. And as you can see here, with all three of these illustrations, I make use of the same source, which is a microphone and obviously a laptop with pre-recorded music. But the first one is a PA system with a stereo mixer, two-channel amplifier, and passive two-way speakers. So you can see the source connects to the mixer, and then the mixer then connects to an amplifier, and then that amplifier connects to two passive speakers. Just again, also I observe the signal flow here from left to right, with it being source, modifier, and destination. The second one is a PA system with a stereo powered mixer and passive two-way speakers. Again, it uses the same source, which in this case again is a microphone and a laptop or electronic device playing back pre-recorded music. But then this plugs into what we call a powered mixer. This is literally one device that incorporates a mixer and an amplifier. So instead of having two separate components, with the first example, you've literally just got one component, and that then in turn connects to two passive speakers. Then the final one is a PA system with stereo mixer and active two-way speakers. Again, the source is exactly the same. The modifier is the same as the first example. In this case, it will be an analog mixer, but in this case, it does not have an amplifier to connect to, because this mixer then connects directly to the two active speakers, meaning that the active speakers, in this case, has got their own built-in amplifiers and has also got their own onboard mixer. So I just wanted to go through those three different variations with regards to point source PA systems. Each system has got its own benefits and uses within the market. You know, for instance, something like the stereo powered mixer option, which is the second one, that could possibly be used in like a small sort of an environment, maybe for just general announcements, maybe a school hall, you know, that sort of thing. And maybe the third iteration, that could be used maybe as a monitor system. So it all depends on what your requirement is and obviously your use case. Each of these would obviously, you know, serve a purpose. So that is point source PA systems. Then we go into two-way PA systems. I'm not going to read all of this here because I mean, it's like I said, it's all available up on my blog, and you can take your time obviously reading it and obviously studying it. But I just wanted to point out the most important thing, or about the most important component with a two-way PA system is the use of an active crossover. I just want to reiterate that I do explain and make use of very basic analog components. I know nowadays you've got, you know, digital mixers and amplifiers with built-in DSPs, but I just wanted to simplify it in this case just to illustrate the use of basic components to explain how it all connects together. So like I said, a two-way PA system, a basic PA system, PA system makes use of an active crossover. And what the active crossover does is splits up the incoming signal into separate frequencies. And on the actual active crossover, you can adjust those frequencies, so you've got what we call a crossover point. And then obviously from that point that you've selected, whatever is below that selected frequency will go to your low amplifier, and whatever is above that will go to your high amplifier. So in this case, a two-way PA system requires two amplifiers in basic form, because they will feed two separate sets of speakers, and in this case it'll be a bass speaker for the low and maybe a mid-high or top speaker for the high, for the mid and high frequencies. So the unit I've chosen here, active crossover, this is a very basic unit. This is a stereo, a two-way crossover, which can also in turn be set or run in three-way mono mode, meaning that if you do run it in three-way mono, you would need two units to connect to a three-way PA system, but obviously we'll go through that in part 2. So and obviously on the front panel here you can see the various settings that you have in terms of selecting your crossover frequency. So the final part of this document then goes through how a two-way PA system, basic PA system connects together. Up here the first drawing shows the back end of the active crossover, shows the left and right input, and obviously the separate low and high outputs are on the left and right channels. Then the next one shows the interconnectivity between the crossover and amplifiers. Obviously at the top you can see the active crossover and how that connects to your high and your low amplifier. The third drawing here and last drawing shows the interconnectivity between the actual amplifiers and the separate speakers. So you can see your high amplifier connects to your top speakers or your mid-high speakers, and your low amplifier connects to your low or your bass speakers. So that is the end of part 1. So I just wanted to do a quick recap with regards to part 1. So what have we learned? We've learned that source, modifier and destinations are terms used to describe the basic principle of how a PA system works, as it needs sound source which is then modified and then fine-tuned before it reaches its destination. A basic PA system consists of a microphone, mixer, amplifier, 2 speakers and the required speaker and signal cables to connect it all together. A two-way PA system consists of an active crossover to send dedicated frequencies to the correct speakers. Two-way PA system also consists of separate amplifiers and separate bass and mid speakers. So yeah, that brings us up to the end of part 1. Part 2, like I mentioned, we will discuss three-way PS systems, and I'll do a quick basic comparison between two-way and three-way PS systems. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you on the next one with part 2.